All right, hey, I just wanted to check in with a January 2025 reading recap and a look ahead to February 2025. I actually just got back from Barnes & Noble, picking up my books that I'm going to read in February. So this is kind of the perfect time to do this little recap here. First, I'm going to go over in order all of the books that I read in January of this year. And I read a total of 12 books, flipping 5,424 pages, which is a little statistic that I think I'm going to keep track of. I'm going to count every page that I read throughout the months, just so I can see. I know all pages aren't built the same, but I just want to see how many pages flipped at the end of every month. I think that's an interesting statistic. So I'll go over the 12 books that I read this month and show you the 12 books that I'm planning on reading in February. And I'll also share with you my favorite and least favorite book that I read this month in January 2025. So without further ado, let's get right into it. My year started out with finishing up the third book in the Dark Tower series, The Wastelands by Stephen King. I had started this in the day after Christmas, actually, and I didn't read very much at all. I only read about 25% of it up until the start of the new year, and then I read the rest of it. And I finished this on the 5th of January. So it took me 10 days to read, and that's a very long time for a book this size. So I need to try to get a little bit better about that. And the same kind of thing is actually happening to me right now with book 4, where it's just taking me a little bit long to read, but getting ahead of myself there. First book of the month, right here, 721 pages. The Wastelands by Stephen King. Took 10 days to read. Went into a much shorter book of Sackett's Land by Louis L'Amour. This took me a day to read. This was a January 5th through January 6th, and this was 208 pages. I really enjoyed Sackett's Land. The first book in this series. I enjoyed the second one too, and then the third one was alright, but again, getting ahead of myself. Next book I read was this monster, the fourth book in the Wheel of Time series, The Shadow Rising by Robert Jordan. I started this on January 7th and finished it on January 10th. That took me 3 days to read, and this was 940 pages. I really enjoyed parts of this book, and I really didn't enjoy a lot of this book. But because of a comment by Steve Donahue, actually, I was going to be reading one of these books a month, and then in that video of this, I was like, maybe I don't want to read one a month. And he left a little comment saying, this is the cycle that everybody takes. And I was like, I can't be another statistic. So I did pick up the 5th book, and I'll get to that. After that, I read Helmet for My Pillow by Robert Leckie. This is a true account of some stories of a man who was drafted after Pearl Harbor, the attack on Pearl Harbor, and some of his stories in World War II. I started this on the 10th of January and finished it on the 11th. That was 1 day to read, and that was 322 pages. I highly recommend this book. This was my first nonfiction book of the year, and I really, really enjoyed it. Right after that, do you want to present this book, Dune? All right, I'm going to have Dune present this book. So right after that is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. He's a little shy. He doesn't want to talk too much about it. But The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. This is my first classic, I think, that I've read, and I loved it. I loved it a lot. And this, I started on January 11th and finished it on the 12th. It was 1 day to read, and that was 387 pages. Highly recommend. Highly recommend this book. A book that I don't recommend, though, is James, which is a retelling of Huckleberry Finn. It's not a retelling, actually. It's a reimagining of Huckleberry Finn from the perspective of Jim, the slave. It's terrible. I didn't like it anyway. But I read this between January 12th to January 13th. That took me 1 day to read, and it was 303 pages. It's not worth your time. It's not worth your time. Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Mistborn series, and I really enjoyed it. This hooked me. I'm very excited to continue this series. I started this on the 14th of January and finished it on the 18th of January, taking 4 days to read, and that was 534 pages. Highly recommend this book. Crazy magic system, a fantasy heist world in a environment that I picture like the Dishonored games environment, and assassins and thieves, and it's a really, really cool story. Highly, highly recommend Mistborn. These next, well, I'll do one at a time. The next one is To the Far Blue Mountains by Louis L'Amour. This is the second book in the Sackett's Land series. And this I started on the 21st and finished on the 22nd, being 1 day to read, and that was 409 pages because this is the Lost Treasures edition, which has some bonus content in the back, and it was good. The Louis L'Amour books so far have just kind of been, they're all right for me. They kind of feel like watching an episode of a cartoon. I can't take them very seriously almost. But they're good. I like them so far. It goes right into The Warrior's Path, which is the third book of the Sackett series by Louis L'Amour. And this one I didn't like at all, really. This was the first book that bounces away from Barnabas Sackett, who was coming to America in the first two books, and then this is his son, Ken Sackett. It didn't hit as good for me. I think I like Barnabas a little bit more. This I read on the 22nd to the 23rd, being 1 day to read, and that was 240 pages. Small book, easy to get through. Not hard. The way Louis L'Amour writes is really easy to read, I'd say. The next book I read was Stephen King's Finders Keepers, which is the second book in the Bill Hodges trilogy. I really enjoyed this book. Funny enough, I didn't really like the Bill Hodges parts of this book, but all the rest of the story was really good. This I started on the 23rd, and I finished it on the 27th of January, being 4 days to read. That was 558 pages. The next book is Cujo, a novel by Stephen King, and I got some people in my comments on my review that said they hated this book. I don't understand, because this was a great book to me. This was one of my favorite Stephen King books, and I started this on the 24th and finished it on the 29th, being 5 days to read, and that was 418 pages. Cujo is about basically a rabid dog that is guarding a vehicle that is stuck there with a woman and a child inside, and they don't know what to do. They're slowly dying, and it's just a fearful, terrifying experience. Great book. I loved Cujo. I loved Cujo. The next book on my list is actually a book I don't have a physical copy of yet. Audible is doing a little bit of a deal with like a buy two for one credit with select titles, and there was, normally I don't do those, but there was two in there that actually did look really interesting to me for once, and so I was like, fuck it, I'll do it. And I'm gonna show you just like the picture of the book, because I did listen to this book fully. I didn't read it, but I am getting the physical version in the mail. That is NFL Century by Joe Horrigan. This is a fantastic book that covers the last 100 years of the NFL. He wrote this in 2019, so it's right before some of the stuff that happened with COVID and kind of changing the league after that. But it is really, really informative. It reads a little bit like a business text sometimes, but it is really good. It covers, Vince Lombardi and a lot of the start of the Bears and all of the cool events that happened in like the 1920s and all the rule changes and why the rules changed. And I'm going to be doing a review on this once I get the physical version in, because I don't like holding up Kobo as much as I like holding up the physical book. But it is a fantastic book. I started this on the 30th of the month, and I finished this last night, actually, on the 31st. That's 1 day to read, 384 pages. If you're an NFL fan, highly recommend it. Very, very good book. Those are all the books that I read in January 2025. That is 12 books, and like I said, that is 5,424 pages, which is just an interesting statistic to me. My favorite book of the month, I'm sure you can tell by the way I spoke about it. My favorite book of the month, Cujo by Stephen King. Just really, really enjoyed it. And my least favorite book of the month was James by Percival Everett. Really did not enjoy this. That takes us out of the January section of this video and puts us into the look ahead to February. Like I said, I just went and picked up a few books, but there was a couple that I already had that I am working on. One of those books was the other Audible book that I got from that little bundle with the NFL Century book, and that is Run Away With Me by Daniel Hurst. I really, really like this book so far. I am reading it currently. I just started it this morning. It's really good. The premise of it is, I'm gonna spoil the first little 20% of this book, because it makes the premise of the book, I think, a little more interesting. Essentially, a husband, it's only two characters. A husband comes home to his wife and is like, I accidentally hit and killed somebody on my way home. I left because I didn't call the cops because I was at that little party and I had three beers. I'm not going to blow under the limit. We gotta run. And she's pregnant, and he convinces her to go on the run. They go to his sister's cabin to hide out where it has like no service. He has her turn off her phone and stuff. And slowly you're realizing he may have not actually killed somebody. This might be something weird going on. He's like kind of kidnapping her and hiding her for some reason. And it goes into his mind for a minute in one of the chapters, and he's gonna frame his wife for some sort of crime. And he's hiding her out to keep her away from all the news sources so she doesn't see what's about to go on. And it's not clear why he's doing it. It's not clear what's happening fully yet, but it is very, very intriguing, and I highly, highly recommend this book so far. That's Run Away With Me by Daniel Hurst. Like I said, I'm 20% in. This is my little pocket e-reader. I am listening to it while flipping through it on this, actually. The other book I'm currently working on, normally I don't like working on two books at once, and you'll see why. It's because I'm not very far into this book. So I am obviously not very far into Stephen King's fourth book in the Dark Tower series, Wizard and Glass. I did start this a couple days ago and have just not had time to read necessarily. I was pretty busy at work yesterday, and then now today is Saturday, and this is a dumb excuse, but the WWE Royal Rumble is tonight at 6, and so I'm just not really feeling like reading a lot right now. I'm excited for WWE stuff right now, so this is going to be another slow read for me. I really want to try to read the Dark Tower books a little quicker like I can with every other book, but I like enjoying it too. I like having these ones really stretch out because the world in these books are just it's so fascinating. I love the Dark Tower series so far, and I highly, highly recommend that. Another book that I am planning on reading this month is a book that actually came out a couple months ago, and I wanted to read it when it came out, but I'm reading it alongside my buddy, and he only will listen to the audio version of the book. He doesn't want to read it physically, so I'm waiting alongside him for February 11th for the 7th Dungeon Crawler Carl book to come out on Audible. I have the Kindle version, and it's been sitting here, and I want to read it so bad, but I told my buddy I'd wait for him to be able to read it too, so here we are. But This Inevitable Ruin by Matt Dinniman, the 7th book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I don't think I've ever been so excited to read a book in my life, and especially just having it sitting here on my Kindle for the last month. It has been, I want to read it so bad, but I'm waiting. It's 10 days away from today. I can wait. Excited for Dungeon Crawler Carl stuff. So this next book is actually a book that I ordered about a week ago on Thrift Books and got. I haven't read it yet, but it's a short story collection, and one short story in it is actually what made me buy this entire collection, because I read the short story online and I loved it so fucking much that I was like, I have to see more of what this guy's written. That is Oblivion Stories by David Foster Wallace. I'm sure everybody's heard the name David Foster Wallace. He wrote Infinite Jest, which is a book that I kind of want to try to read this year now. He is a cool dude. If you got some time or whatever, look up some interviews with David Foster Wallace on YouTube. It's all from 2000s and 1990s and stuff, because he killed himself in 2008. But I read Incarnations of Burned Children online, and I'm not kidding. I probably have read it about 20 times in the last 2 weeks. I love it. It's on page 114. I flipped right to it. It is a short story, right? It is this, that, and this. It is so good. And I'm not even going to say what it's about. Just go Google Incarnations of Burned Children, David Foster Wallace PDF or whatever. You'll find it online. That made me pick up this whole short story collection, and I really want to read this this month. now I'm getting to the books that I got at Barnes & Noble. So I just got back from Barnes & Noble, like I said this morning, and picked up the rest of my TBR. So those were the first couple. Here's the remainder of the TBR for February. The End of Watch, the third book in the Bill Hodges trilogy. I am very, very excited to get to this book because I liked Finders Keepers a lot. Like I said, I'm excited to see how Bill Hodges and Holly and Jerome are going to handle whatever comes in this book. And I'm just excited to get to it. I have avoided all spoil. I haven't even read the back of the book. I just read the first couple words there, and I was like, I'm done. I don't want to read any more just now. I'm just gonna go into this blind, and I'm excited. The next book up is the 5th book in Dark Tower series, The Wolves of Kala by Stephen King. I'm reading one of these a month until I finish Dark Tower, which means I'll finish Dark Tower in, not next month, but the month after, March or April. I should finish Dark Tower like April, May. But like I said, I'm taking my time with this series because I really do enjoy just like the world and the characters, and I'm excited to continue reading it. But I also am like, I don't want this series to end. The next series, it's a series that I kind of already am excited to be done with, but I'm only on book 5 of 14. And that is the 5th book in the Wheel of Time, The Fires of Heaven by Robert Jordan. Like I said, that fucking Steve Donahue comment made it so I have to keep reading a goddamn Wheel of Time book a month until I finish this series at the end of this year. This series is a little different for me though, because I get 2 Audible credits a month. One of them is dedicated to a Wheel of Time book right now because I can't focus super well on the Wheel of Time right now because I'm just not that interested in it right now, but I do want to read it, so I'm going to. I'm gonna force myself. Maybe it'll click at some point. I hope it does. But the 5th Wheel of Time book by Robert Jordan, right there. The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is the 2nd book in the Mistborn trilogy, and I'm so excited to dive right in. I honestly, I don't know what goes on in this book. I don't know a synopsis of anything that goes on in this book. Just like the End of Watch, I'm just excited to go into it blind and keep enjoying the world that Brandon Sanderson is building in this, because it is just phenomenal. The next book up is a book that I actually have heard very, very negative things about. This whole series as a whole, there's only one book in it that people love, and it happens to be my favorite book of all time, and that book is Lonesome Dove. And Streets of Laredo is, I think, technically actually like the final book in the series, if you're talking about like chronologically in the world, but it was the 2nd published book that he had in the series, so I'm just gonna read it in publication order. I've heard that none of them match even close to Lonesome Dove. It's all right. I want to see more of what he has to write. I've only read Lonesome Dove, and that's my only Western. I gotta see more of Larry McMurtry stuff, and I'm going into it hopeful that I'll enjoy the story at least a little bit more than some people, because I don't have a whole lot of Westerns under my belt. So maybe I got that going for me. I think I want to read Lonesome Dove again this year though. Maybe in the summertime, or I don't know. I love Lonesome Dove. Lonesome Dove's, it's phenomenal. It's such a good book. So I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna read that series just so I can say I did. I'm just not super hopeful for the rest of the books. But the next book up is a book that I am going to be buddy reading with one of my friends again, the same friend that I'm reading Dungeon Crawler Carl with. As soon as we finish book 7 of Dungeon Crawler Carl, we're going to read Eragon. It is one of his favorite series from when he was a kid, and I told him I'd read along with him because he wants to reread them, and I was like, I read the first book back in middle school, and I really, really liked it, and then I remembered the movie coming out, and I absolutely hated the movie, and then I never read any of the other books. But I want to see what the world of Eragon's all about, see how the story progresses. It is a like YA fantasy kind of book, and I'm excited. By Christopher Polini, by the way. I don't think I said his name. I'm super excited to read Eragon. Like I said, my buddy and I are going to be reading this alongside each other, so Should be a good time. All right. The next book is a Stephen King book, and this is actually, I think I only picked up three Stephen King books this month, and I'm pretty proud of myself for that because I could have picked up a lot more. It is The Long Walk by Stephen King, written under Richard Bachman. And from what I understand, the premise of this story is that a group of young men are forced to keep walking at a steady pace until there's only one standing. And if you slow down or stop or whatever, I think you die. But I'm not 100% sure. All of these books I try to go into relatively blind, so I'm not sure. But I trust just about anything that man right there does. So I am very excited to read this. All right, I'm down to my last book that I'm planning on reading in February of 2025, and that is another classic, and that is The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. Like I said, I loved Huckleberry Finn. I absolutely loved Huckleberry Finn, and I want to read more Mark Twain now. So I picked this up, and I don't know a whole lot about Tom Sawyer, I'll be honest, besides him being kind of a dickhead in Huckleberry Finn. but I'm very excited to read it. So this is book number 12 that I'm planning on possibly reading this month. And I'm saying that out loud and realizing that this month only has 28 days, so I got to read a little bit more, a little quicker than I was kind of planning, now that I'm saying that out loud. Regardless, I think I can get it done. So these are all of the books that I'm planning on trying to read throughout February. And one more on top of that, which is This Inevitable Ruin by Matt Dinniman. Oh, and Run Away With Me by Daniel Hurst, actually. So 2 more on top of that, which I'll have the physical copies of eventually. The Dungeon Crawler Carl books are slow to come out. They're releasing 4, 5, and 6 over the next in a few months. They'll be releasing 4, 5, and 6. So I'll get those hardcover. I'm so excited. And then 7. Anyway, I'm sorry. This was a weird kind of ranty video. This is my first monthly recap. And I'm planning on doing these throughout all of 2025. I would like to just kind of do a recap and a little look ahead of the next month so that you can kind of see if you even want to stick around on the channel for the next month. Maybe it's not even a month that interests you. You can just kind of put me out of your brain for the month. But this is something that I want to try to start regularly doing. And we'll see how it goes. But anyways, I appreciate y'all for sticking around this long. I know this is a long video. And thanks.